Manoj, thank you so much for the MindSpeak session today. What were your impressions?
Thank you. I think firstly, I did have some expectations, but I think the turnout was good. And a great platform for someone like me to come and speak about little things that make difference.
No, but it was fantastic, and I think there were so many lessons that you gave. If I can just recap a little bit, you run basically 21 countries out of Nairobi, is that correct? Internet and mobile?
Yeah, 16 countries.
16, sorry,
That's
16?
correct, yeah.
And its target is $2 billion of revenues in 2015.
Not really 2 billion. I mean, our company's mission is as a Samsung Electronics East Africa Limited.
Yes.
The entity, our mission is to make 2 billion. So I suppose my division, which is Internet and Mobile, would contribute to about 2/3 of the business.
Is Internet and Mobile?
That's pretty much where what target we have set for ourselves to achieve.
Yeah. And that is mostly mobile devices, right?
Mobile, tablets, a little bit of camera. Cameras is a pretty new thing for Samsung.
I love the camera. Thank you.
But I think it's a new way of looking at camera technology, and I think Samsung, where they are strong, is they have had a very strong hold in semiconductor field, and of course now they've got their own lenses, and of course we have been championing the user interface for smartphones. So I think it's a good combination that you'll find in a device called, for example, K-Zoom. So it's a brand new development area, but we are up for the challenge to see what East Africans would embrace from Samsung in imaging products, as I would call it.
Yes, and you said many things, and I'm interested because a lot of the of just moving on from some of the remarks you made. You talked about mega trends. You like following mega trends. You were talking about metropolitan cities being the economic unit that you look at. Can you just expand a little bit on that? As
in the information age, there's so much information out there, and we need pointers, we need guidelines on to what to focus and what not to focus. So what happens is, especially industry person like me, I mean, I'm very cocooned in my own environment and see what's happening around. But the companies like bigger research companies like Frost and Sullivan, or the likes of the Frost, are actually looking at gold as from an eagle's point of view, and saying that what are the trends that is happening, and it's very analytical how they derive a decision. As they are saying that 60% of this country's business is done from this particular capital city, or for example in another context from not necessarily capital, but from a cosmopolitan metropolitan capital perspective. It's a very important information for me, and for example information important for you and everybody else who was in the forum. And the reason why is that we need to guide people. You need to focus on a few things than going for the long tail. Of course, I mean, going by the 80-20 rule, meaning 20% of your customers will bring in 80% of your business.
Do you find that in your business?
Absolutely, because now, like I mean, if you look at not just mine, I mean, most of the companies, by virtue of knowing the mega trends or not, they just know that this is where the business is happening. So they have focused all their efforts on Nairobi. But the other things about the growing mega trends is also that you see the population within the mega city increasing year on year, and that's you can see it in number of apartments that is being built, number of cars that are being built, the traffic jams, and the malls being busy. I mean, it's a real big explosion that's happening in Nairobi, for example. If we don't watch the trend, I mean, we will not know what opportunities exist within that system. So one of the things, I mean, perhaps not from a Nairobi perspective, but in a town like Japan, or in a mega city like Japan or Tokyo, I mean, people are now talking about vertical cities. What vertical cities?
What's a vertical city?
Vertical cities, what it would do is that it's like building a 100-floor apartment block, and then within the apartment block itself, you will find a supermarket, you will find the movie houses, you will find the kids' recreation area, the small Montessori's. Everything that someone needs would be built within the vertical city, or a building infrastructure which can second as a city. So think about it from another perspective. That person enters the building as a if he or she doesn't need to leave. He or she doesn't need to leave. Everything is there. There are restaurants, there are eateries, there is everything in that building. So what would that do to us? I mean, we are now leaving a lot of green spaces for gardening or for landscaping or playing golf, or whichever way you want to look at it. So if you are environmentally conscious, That kind of concept is phenomenal. Instead of capturing all the greenlands that are existing, all the hills that are existing are now turning into apartments or into gated community or estate. So we can look at it from a conscious level of from what we can do from an eco management perspective, and from a, for example, population what do you call, explosion perspective. So they need dwelling, so we provide dwelling, but not in a horizontal way, but we put it in a vertical way. So that's one of the things. The other thing, more and more people increase. We need things to regulate the traffic. For example, traffic controllers, CCTV cameras, the security system, solar power, Wi-Fi network, the sewerage, recycling of sewerage, recycling for bottles, anything. I mean, the mega city can give you a million opportunities from all different verticals. That was the point. Yeah.
Yes. Now, can I ask you to contrast? What have you seen in the last 10 years in Africa in the mobile internet information century? How is it different to the rest of the world? Is it converging? Is it going on a different development trajectory? How would you characterize, because you've been at this cutting edge for 10 plus years.
Well, Africa is a very unique place to be in, and I think perhaps to say that the horses to Porsches, or horses to Porsches, and whatever way you want to look at it. And there has not been any intermediary steps for Africa. So when Africa was found as a potential destination, one, of course, the GDPs have started increasing, either because there is oil in Nigeria, or there is tourism in Kenya, or something else in Uganda, for example, a very catalytic government for Rwanda in terms of investment. So each country had set up its own agenda to be, visible in the global market space. Yes. So that itself, brought in a lot of investors, multiple disciplinary people, engineers, and etc., etc. So I think the growth has been, like there was nothing before, and now you see the cutting edge technologies, top class products, top class buildings, top class gated communities, gadgets, tablets coming into play. So I think that I would say that if you haven't missed anything in terms of Africa, I personally believe that Africa will lead technology in the world. One of the smallest example is M-Pesa, for example. There's not been anybody who has been able to master a mobile money platform anywhere else in the world, yes, with all due respect to all other players. But I think M-Pesa is a phenomenal thing. So we also have tech. So while we talk about bringing in technology or expertise from outside, yes, which is sort of importing technology, we have started exporting technology now as Africans, so which is very, very different mindset. For 10 years ago, nobody would have believed that Africa can start export emerging market technologies from here. So I think there's a whole lot of things happening here. We are taking expertise from foreign countries, from all the big developed nations. We're getting aid, but I think we are also in a stage where we can start exporting technology. So I think it's very evenly placed, and I think probably the place to be in the world, and you can see the signs of Africa is a place to be. Nairobi is a place to be. Yes. That you can see the signs. You can see the real estate. You can see the people coming in, the malls, the restaurant, the works. I mean, everything is fitting into a place where Nairobi will be the next biggest metropolis in Africa.
Wow. Now going back to Samsung and the success of Samsung in Africa, like I said, I've been to functions where everybody's got a Samsung. What was the secret until now of Samsung's success, would you say, on the continent, besides yourself?
Then there's no big secret, Alikan. I think it's back to basics. I firmly believe in going into the market, establishing grassroots relationship with 1 and 2 and 3 retailers who are in Kapsabet or in Kitale or in that remote place in Kisi or Kisumu. So I think that back to basics has really worked very well for us. We in the initial stages, I mean, this was the first thing that we were focusing on, and to see who would be the potential intermediary parties or indigenous entrepreneurs who would like to take the production to the consumer's front. So once that bit is done, of course we are fortunate enough to have a big brand equity coming from the global activities. Of course, we've got flagship products coming out every year, and there's innovation left, right, and center. So those are things that we got a lot of help from the global perspective. But it is also making sure that a Galaxy Gear, for example, or a Galaxy K Zoom or a Note 4 is available to someone in Kitale. Yes. I mean, to make the cutting technology available to a common man in Kitale or to a farmer in Kisi, that is the secret.
Yes.
That is actually
Yes.
the secret. I mean, a lot of products are very big outside Africa, but inside Africa they have not done well, because this is where the back to basics has really worked for us.
And you've used a sort of hybrid model, haven't you, where you're using indigenous entrepreneurs for your retail, right? You're mentioning that. I think that's been a ingredient of success, hasn't
Absolutely,
it?
absolutely.
And you can see from the response you've had here how people feel that you're not just up there, but you're embedded with the local community as well, from the response. What in your life, what would you say has been your greatest challenge, Manoj?
In Africa or in Kenya?
In Africa.
Okay, so I'm being very fortunate, very blessed citizen of Africa. I have not had any, issues from a theft or robbery or physical or any threats.
Yes.
I've been very blessed. I mean, there are no challenges in any country per se. But the only thing that to turn around it into positives, I expect more involvement from the government, from the regulatories to aid small to medium businesses, because every country has grown into the state where they are because of SMEs, because of services companies. So I mean, we are still in a mode where we are pretty much a product or commodity, for example, society. But if you look at country like United States or Japan or India, for that matter, the services are already 40-50% of the entire turnover. So we have to turn around this whole thing into saying, okay, this is not just a box company, we are a solutions company or services company. So I think the enabling bits are really things outside our private company segment. It is perhaps from the regulatory agencies, perhaps, for example, as simple as granting a work visa to somebody a specialist who is willing to come and work. Those are the smaller things that can be changed, which can take the continent and Kenya to the next level. So I would say that touch wood, everything has been good, but I have lots and lots of suggestions how to improve the SME segment and build a services economy.
Yeah, because you are very passionate about that, and I think you would be a very key catalyst for that sector. Manoj, the biggest success in the last 5-10 years for you?
Yeah. My biggest success has been, when I came into Kenya and Nairobi in 2011, I was expecting, uphill task to build a brand and everything else. But my passion is still, in the community and the ecosystem and, mentoring and advising. So, and right from the word go, and the moment I was in the country, perhaps within 30 days or 40 days thereabout, I started, engaging with the local community, with the developers, with the tech ecosystem. I think that has been my biggest success, that I'm recognized within the tech space, and I get a lot of love from people and a lot of questions. People are asking for mentoring and advisors, and I firmly believing in giving back, and by giving advice or mentoring someone, I get more knowledge, and that's my firm belief. And I think that has really been my core success so far in the last 5 years. Thank you.
Where is technology going? If you're imagining the future, I think the buzzword was what? Inspire the future. What is your Samsung tagline? Imagine the future, or
and create the future. Yeah. Inspire the world and create the future.
Yes. So let's look forward in Manoj's mind. Where does this technology thing go? Today, we have it on our phone. We have so much information in our phones. We're living in a new technological age. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah. So if you look at it from, this is completely my personal philosophy and theory, and a little bit taking the clue from Samsung. I talked about infotainment and life care. But you look at the world at large. What is human being doing now? The human beings. Of course, we have evolved, but we are looking at finding what the secret of the world is. How does this world come into play? What are the interplaying things that keep Earth revolving, Earth round, Earth and the oceans and the land and etc. On the other hand, the human beings are also very curious to say, how can I remain young forever? How can I not die, for example? To take it into a technology context, you might have heard about 3D printing. So
yes.
So 3D printing is very simple. I'm not talking about the water, but if you want to print a bottle, I mean, you can print a bottle literally. You don't need to go to a manufacturing plant.
Yes.
So you the plastic, right? Plastic and everything into the 3D printer and feed in the three-dimensional image or the CAD diagram of what it should look like. The printer will print it for you. And what it means into human life is that, I mean, there are experiments ongoing that they are trying to print skin.
Yes.
So suppose if I've had an accident, I've got a scar here.
You could print it.
Yeah, they will print a skin over you. Do you get? And the next level, I mean, it's a little bit scary because someone was actually telling me that, again related to the mega trends, someone was telling me that people are now thinking about, printing organs, for example, a heart or a liver or something. Do you get? I mean, of course, the cloning has been there for some time, but now, you know, we talked about 3D printing, which brings a totally new level. So someone has lost his leg, he can print a leg and fix it back. I mean, it's phenomenal. So human beings are really, you know, looking at how they can live forever, how they can, you know, repair the defects that they have, etc., etc. I can't even, you know, explain to you the level of technology advancement that has happened in the developed world. So the cloning is a fact, the organ printing, you know, the skin printing is a fact now. And of course now some other guys are working on material science. In fact, the core of the technology is material science, whichever way you want to look at it, whether it is integrated circuit, a display, a skin technology, screen printing, everything is related to material science or meteorology. And that is where, you know, everything has been coming from. Whether there's a guy who's working on building a pipe which can be rust free. I don't know how to call it. It doesn't get rusty. Yeah. So he's building a pipe, proper pipe, which can carry, you know, for example, oil or gas or etc. So there are a number of initiatives that is happening into different parts of the world. But I think in the center of the whole thing is that human being, the sustenance of the ecosystem, how long can I live, how can I repair my defects, how can I connect quickly to another human being, how can I gain his knowledge, how can the worldly knowledge be available to me. Everything that you will find, whether it is Google Glass or Google digitization, have been talking about building a chip that can be implanted in your brain,
yes,
which will, so you don't need to, before you ask, Googling is on the computer.
Yes,
before you ask the question,
yes,
it comes, everything is coming. So they're all trying to get the worldly knowledge into one single chip and trying to give it to you. Here is Ali Khan. You don't need to Google anything. You walk around with everything that you need in terms of the knowledge that you have. So I think that is where the technology is going. Quite scary, but you know, that's the fact.
Now, with this experience of yours in Africa since the late 1990s or early 2000, are we really rising? Do you feel it? Can you see it? I remember you telling me, Ali Khan, you know, the statistics don't show. Sometimes you see a salary, you go to the house, there'll be a TV, there'll be a phone. Are we rising, Manoj? Is this the moment that everyone has been waiting for? Is it happening, in your opinion?
Yeah, so let me take it from two angles. I think one is about, you know, the income disparity within the community. And the reason why I made the comment was that when we did the survey saying, okay, let me get the primary income of people, you know, in the survey group. So we went into a community, for example, in Kitale or Kapsabet, one of the remote communities, and tried to find out what is your daily income, or are you a salaried person? Or I'm not a salaried person. Okay, what do you do? Oh, I sell vegetable. What is your daily income? You know, 1,000 shillings. Somebody, salary man will say, my salary is 17 or 18 or 20,000 shillings. But what you see inside his house is totally different from what, I mean, there is no relationship between what he has as a TV or a house, or, you know, what he has in terms of an income. So the reason why I made a comment is that a lot of Africans, especially from the African context, perhaps a little bit in the Asian context as well, is that while they have an employment or a primary income, they also have secondary income, like they have farming, they have something else going on in the village in terms of you know, growing the pine trees for electrical poles or etc. etc. So I think it's quite an interesting economy to work in. While in the West, in the Western economy, you can actually say that this guy, his income is like $200 and that's it. So if you are working in a bank, if I'm the guy who's issuing a credit card to you, you'll say, on paper he's got nothing. Do you understand? So there is so for companies and for service providers, it's a challenge to find out what really the guy has got in terms of income. The secondary part of that is that, of course, I'm sure you know that, is that there is a lot of unbanked culture in Africa. I mean, of course, there is M-Pesa now, but M-Pesa again is just in Kenya, and it's also only one of the elements it's tackling. That is, can I transfer money from point A to point B? But are people still holding money in the house? Absolutely. So I think there is an unbanked culture as well. So in terms of getting an information of how wealthy Kenyan is right from the bottom of the pyramid, it's very difficult to get it. So there are a number of countries who have got very good information system, but you rightly said in the beginning, for us, we still need to go into some grassroots level and get the information right. That's the point that I would make. But the second side about Africa and the rise of Africa, I think certain countries in Africa, I mean, I've seen, for example, countries like Angola and Nigeria, and of course now in Kenya, has been, I mean, in the top 5 in Africa. And what has happened in the last 5 years? Okay, some countries have found oil. We have found other ways to, generate foreign income. So I think the exports from Kenya has really increased. I mean, if you look at agricultural produce, it's really, really going up. Coffee, of course, we have been known to, send coffee abroad. But in midst of all this basic, how do you call it, the balance sheet of the country, I mean, we also have a very, very big ecosystem nurturing in Kenya. And of course, I mean, supported by the bandwidth providers, all the internet service providers, GSM operator, they brought in the fiber, the cost of internet has gone down. So I think, we've got, I think, sort of like a fantastic mixture of everything in Kenya. We've got the right, beautiful tourism.
Yes.
Fantastic places. It's a paradise. It's one of the unique places on earth. You got, where else can you see Big Five in one place, except in a zoo, of course, except in a zoo. But you can see Big Five out there. I mean, it's a man, a normal man can drive out of the town and watch Big Five. So tourism, the wildlife, of course, very, very good economy in terms of agriculture exports, both vegetables, fruit and coffee. And of course, we have a very, very young ecosystem which is growing day by day. So I think whatever, I mean, whichever way you want to dice and slice, the country has grown. You can see more cars. You can see the economic strata has developed. I think we are just, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think with the right help from you, me, from the government, from the president, this place is going to go through the roof. So I think it's the right mindset, and we need to work together. And I would really emphasize on partnerships. Yes. I think that is the key word.
That was the message I heard from you, and I really like that message. It was like a win-win collaboration.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, we are a human race. I mean, we need to, know how to work with each other. I mean, we are working for a single cause, for development of Kenya, for example. So why not? There shouldn't be, of course, I have my core competencies, you have your core competencies, but why should we stand separate? We can perhaps 1 + 1 is equal to sort of 3 equation. That's what I'm hinting at from the partnership. Yeah.
Manoj, I'm going to leave it at 1 + 1 = 3.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.